Everybody, welcome to the first ever episode of Call RevOps with Raja and Akande. And today we're going to be diving into a very interesting topic. I think maybe a slightly hot take topic, but we'll explore it and see what you guys think. So, Raja, as we kind of kick this off, this is a question we encountered personally, and I would love to understand a little bit more on this flagrant lie that is the art of the possible. When we think about art of the possible, what does that even mean?
Yeah, I mean it's exactly that. It could be anything, right? Like I could be in Deadpool 3 or 4. Like it's possible, right? Anything inside inside the space of marketing technology. When we talk about art of the possible, we're talking about the possibility or the scenarios of what everyone would want, right? And the hard kind of steadfast deal is that it is a blatant lie. It is used to sell you products. It is used to paint a vision of a landscape that's so nice and that's so pretty that you would want to go there, and no one would kind of second guess it. No one would say, yeah, well, obviously we don't want revenue. Obviously that didn't make any sense. We don't want repeatable revenue. We don't want to scale. We don't want cohesiveness inside our MarTech stack. And that's the art of the possible is the reason that a lot of the initiatives behind marketing technology and strategy fail, right? I always describe it this way, that when you are sold the art of the possible, there's three ways that you can really go. There's the art of the possible, there's plausible, and then there's probable. The probable route is likely what most companies focus on. However, the possible is kind of the shiny object. That's the light at the end of the tunnel that we kind of want to all try to achieve, and we're so focused on it that we never take time to consideration what it's going to take.
Well, and let's contextualize a little bit too. So let's say that I'm an enterprise organization and we're evaluating a new MarTech platform. Let's say a CRM, marketing automation tool. I meet with the people that are providing these platforms. Why aren't they selling me or giving me the art of the probable or giving me the probable solution rather than the pie in the sky?
Because you wouldn't buy it. Right, everyone wants to be. That's the reality of it, right? Like when we talk about the art of the possible, we talk about it from a sales perspective, and that's where it realistically should say. And I understand why it's there, and it should be there because it's saying these are the things that we can do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are able to do it at this moment in time, and that's where it should stay. It should stay with sales because that's what they have to. In order to truly understand technology, they have to sell you a vision or a dream or an end scenario, which might not exist right now. And that's why the art of the possible is there. But once again, once it transfers, once that transfers from what is possible to how do we as an organization really implement it and adopt it, and how do we resource it, how do we staff it, those are the parts where the middle ground has to come into the place. This is the part where you're actually planning on what to do. And that's the part that's commonly and more consistently overlooked.
So you kind of hinted at a little bit, but there's a ground to cover between what's probably going to happen, what could plausibly happen, and what could possibly happen. So what are some of those blockers to the art of the possible that, maybe someone who's pushing this new technology or maybe someone who's talking to this enterprise org skims over or doesn't entirely address? What are some of those roadblocks?
I think a couple of the roadblocks are pretty common, right? People talk about them all the time. Like, there's process, there's people, and there's tech. Well, some tech just might not fit your organ's business model, but that doesn't deter the possibility of it happening. And I think that's the big differentiation is that technology is super nice. It's supposed to make our life easier, but we kind of get caught up in the end game so much that we don't know if as an org, we're either ready for it or the bigger question, if it's ultimately needed. That's why now in 2024, it's everyone's downsizing, everyone's consolidating tech because they're like, what are we even using this for? That's a couple of the major roadblocks is not taking the art of the possible and defining it into what your business truly actually needs. And plausibility in a sense, and it's kind of based off on this whole entire cone of plausibility. I think I made a post about it recently, is that something can be plausible, but you have to put budget and you have to put money behind it because money is what or revenue is what's going to put people inside seats. It's going to help you implement it better. It's going to help you integrate it. It's going to help you, create processes that align whatever technology that you have, and not just one. We're talking about the entire stack in a nutshell. Is that that's what's going to help you align it with your business goals. And I think no one cares, or they might care, but no one really takes into account is that how is this going to fit in for us, right? Like, how are we going to adopt this technology, and do we have the people to do it? And that's why the most probable route is the one that we should dominantly focus on. Why? Because it's saying, hey, this is what we want. These are the resources that we have. And this is the most probable way we're going to scale to that art of the possible, or that possible vision. And that's not even to say like that possibility could even change, right? After you implement it, it could completely change. It could be a completely different possible scenario that you might be traveling towards afterwards.
It's interesting because when we first encountered kind of this idea or this framework, or we developed, or I should say you really developed this idea of the marketing plausibility curve, the takeaway too is kind of like, as an enterprise org maybe looking to bring in a new platform, you might need this technology, but the reality of what you could probably do with it is a lot different than what is possible with the technology. There's kind of roadblocks that have to be overcome, for one, but then there's also this component of, well, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? I think that you can achieve a lot on the probable route, still implementing the platform, but just approaching it in a way that makes more sense.
Well, and that's going to change your possibility, right? Like the whole idea behind this plausibility curve, it's taken from a scientific model that talks about different future state scenarios, right? And it's really cool. I mean, for me, I guess, if it doesn't sound cool for you, that's perfectly fine. But that's the idea behind the cone of plausibility, is that your future was constantly moving. So when we talk about MarTech adoption, like true MarTech adoption, you might start off with probable, and that possibility that was essentially sold or you wanted could in fact change. And when it changes, it could change for the better, rather than what is the most ideal, quote unquote, best practice that was originally kind of, shown or told or, laid out for you. That vision is, that change in the future state actually would align a lot better, probably with your business and a company's goals. And I wouldn't say your business, but a company's goals and trajectory. It would just align a lot better.
If we're evaluating technology and we're being kind of sold the art of the possible, or if somebody is sitting in this seat where they have to make a decision, we talk a lot about hindsight, insight, and foresight. How can someone use those three kind of concepts to make a decision that will land them, in the bullseye, taking a probable route for success, that grounded predictability?
When you're in the hot seat and you're constantly, as executives, like, you're constantly under the pressure and under the gun to perform and evaluate, I think you need to start looking at resources that are in the tool, right? When I was, I've been doing this for 15 years, and one of the things that we never got asked as an operations person or as an operations consultant during that time was like, hey, we're thinking about getting this technology. Do you think it's going to fit in based off on our business goals? I think it's the idea that executives generally feel like we have to decide what technology based off on a strategy, and really it should always be the people that are managing the tools and the resources that are managing them also getting their opinion on it as well, because they're in it, they're hands-on, right? They're day-to-day. And I'm not saying that they're going to make the decision of the ultimate yes and no is always in our hands, right? No matter what. It's just you can get better insight and better data to say, hey, we probably don't need something because we already have something similar to it. Or yes, this is an actual gap. We need to fill this gap because we have now scaled to the point where we can't do it manually anymore. And I think that would be like the first starting point, is talk to the people and talk to the resources that are going to be managing or have been managing the current tools. Once again, they're not going to sign off on it. They're not going to say it, but that input, I think, is something that I personally have never seen happen. Like, in my career, I don't know about you, Akande, like, as consultants or even marketing managers or marketing operations, individuals, I think we were always told, this is the piece of technology, help us implement it. Not so, do we need this in our org, or can you do this with something else?
Yeah, it's almost kind of like an internal sort of, RFP, if you will, to come to the people that are managing the technology and say, hey, here's the strategy, here's what the goals are, here's what we're looking to accomplish. How does our MarTech stack fit into it? And if it doesn't, help us evaluate what could actually be. So it's almost, if I'm hearing you right, it's almost a strategy first approach, and then tapping into the insights of the team that can help map out what the probable path is to have a strategic success tied to that.
So we do RFPs all the time, right? Like for a request for a proposal. And, I think a variation, whatever we want to kind of call it, is always good internally, right? Like it's always good to ask resources that are managing tools day in, day out. Hey, this is an RFP. This is a proposal request. Does it make sense? Is it going to fit in? Should we spend money on this?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because when you think about B2B marketing or like the services industry or working with MarTech, and then you compare that to like Taco Bell. Taco Bell, when they come up with a new product, they get taste testers, right? They get crowdsourced feedback from their internal team and say, hey, is this a good product or a bad product? And if it's great, they'll roll it out. Maybe it's a hit, maybe it's not. But a lot of times with B2B marketing or MarTech strategy, we kind of do the opposite approach. We implement the solution, realize it's not going to solve the problem. Buy it. Yeah, exactly. We've been sold a dream.
We don't even taste test it, right? Yeah. And that's the kicker. Like we don't even taste test it. Like listen, like just flat out, like a demo is not going to get you anywhere in life. Like a demo of a product is not the end all be all. There's so many people and there's so many companies that even when I did kind of like when we did marketing consulting for products, everyone would want a trial, everyone would want a demo, and that works in the more startup small business space, and depends on like a product like Asana or a product like Monday. Like those demos make sense. When we're talking about actual MarTech technology that is meant to market your business, I'll tell you right now, a 7-day free trial isn't gonna do anything
for a 12 or 24-month stand-up process.
Yeah, right. Like it's going to take you 3 months to implement it. A 7-day free trial is not going to do anything. There's so many people, we want a demo, we want to see how it works. By the time you get into the weeds of it and start implementing it, that demo that you did is probably going to be thrown out the window anyway, because you're not taking it. You don't have people on the call, like the right people. You don't have the processes. You're not taking any of that strategy into account. You're just looking at the technicality of something. And of course, it's going to work. Like a marketing automation platform is designed to send an email. If you go in and you send an email and it's delivered to your inbox, congratulations. Yep. Demo successful.
The demo has been spot on.
Yeah, it's working. You fill out a form. Oh, there's my data point entry. That's my UAT scenario, user acceptance testing. But that's not going to do anything for you. The demo environment is not like pitching for it, moving for it is not going to help you really know if this product's going to fit into your organization.
When you were kind of speaking to that, it did kind of bring an earlier point that I want to circle back on, because I know this is about RevOps. We want to get a feel for, why this really matters in a RevOps scenario. So we know that technology won't fix people or processes. Those things have to be addressed. Another thing that came to mind for me was, will technology, the answer to this, will it fix bad data? I think we could probably answer that pretty succinctly, but I would love to hear your take on that as well, because a lot of times it's the art of the possible is built on those three things: people, process, and then data. And if the data in the same way is bad, what can you do with that technology?
Data is not a very fun point for podcasts or point of conversations, but it's just like the most crucial piece that there is, right? And here, like, since you mentioned RevOps, I'm literally gonna go here. I'm gonna Google what is RevOps. And I'm going to essentially read off verbatim what revenue operations as a role should be doing. To tell you the truth, when the first I heard the term RevOps, I think like I didn't even agree with it. I didn't because it didn't make any sense to me, right? And honestly, to a point, it doesn't really make any sense to me to this day. We just call it RevOps because that's just how it came to be. But when you come up with when you just Google what is RevOps, there's a million things and millions. What it says is the alignment of sales, marketing, and customer success operations across the full customer lifecycle to drive growth through operational efficiencies, right? And to hold teams accountable of revenue. Now, the first time I read that, I was like, well, isn't that just the job of senior leadership? Like, do we really need a middle manager for senior leadership to make sure that the senior leadership is also focusing on revenue from a company perspective? Because that's what companies do, right?
Yeah.
Like a company is not a company if you're not bringing in revenue. So what is the purpose of this role? And I want to change it a little bit, because I think when I didn't, to this day, it's hard for me as someone that's been doing it for a while to wrap my head around that you need to get a director, VP of sales or marketing to report to a RevOps person to make sure the leaders are doing what they're supposed to be doing from a company growth perspective. And the fact that this overseer is, I think that's what I used at one time, is needed is because of stuff like this. It's because of the art of the possible being sold over and over and over again, and everyone being independent and saying, we need this. This is what's going to help us hit our numbers. This is what's going to help us hit our numbers. And now this kind of middle manager almost for leadership's like, no, you probably don't need this. And that's where I believe RevOps, as a true leader in RevOps, what I haven't seen a lot of is people as a RevOps person just saying no. Right? Yeah. Like, no, we don't need to implement this right now. We don't need account-based marketing currently, even though it's the most popular thing and there's 30 blogs on why you need ABM. And I think that's where this whole art of the possible, really kind of comes into place, is that if we want to say RevOps as a role is required, then RevOps leaders should also be able to say no and have enough information on tech. And that's why I'll stand by that marketing operations individuals are way better as RevOps leader than any other role. Why? Because we are, I keep saying we are, but we're part of every single tech stack that hits an organization. We talked about this in the RevOps framework, right? We oversee customer success, which, by the way, is just the definition. If you Google it and you just type in what is revenue operations, it says customer success. Marketing helps customer success. We help onboard, welcome. We help, product information, whatever clients need to be successful. Sales enablement, across sales enablement throughout the entire lead lifecycle. Sales never sees anything prior to MQL traditionally. I'm using MQL as a phrase, mind you, but up to a certain point is when sales begins. Prior to that, there's an entire slew of things that they're not even aware of.
For sure.
However, marketing is, right? Marketing is aware of it. So that's why I think when we talk about the art of the possible, we have to be able to, be able to have people that truly understand the entire life cycle, not just a part of it, but the entire life cycle and all of the pieces of the technology. And realistically, the only way that you can do that is if you've been in marketing operations or as a marketing role. Like, that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's kind of the driver of the revenue operations framework, and we'll put up an image of that to kind of demonstrate that. But marketing operations is at the heart of it, and it's not because marketing operations gets all the glory, because they don't. It's not because marketing operations is the only piece that matters, but it's the piece that kind of rolls into that RevOps overseer role. And it kind of helps coordinate everything, like it's a defensive and offensive line coach. It helps guide the ship so that the people quarterbacking and playing receiver can get the job done. So I think that's a great way to put it. We see this, the heart of this entire cycle, being driven by MarTech. So if the strategy and the MarTech don't align, the possible is not possible at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many orgs that I've seen that have given marketing technology to IT or CRM, and whoever manages the CRM, it's very IT infrastructure org, and it has just flat out failed. Right? You're taking so many different things and you're trying to combine it without involvement of everyone. Like, it's literally like if Edward Scissorham, a Powerpuff Girl, and a Care Bear got together, like, that team is not going to work, right? Like, it is just not going to happen. Yeah. Like, a Care Bear is going to be, both Care Bear and the Powerpuff Girl is going to be scared of Edward Scissorham, and one cut and they're both done. Like, they're fluffy objects. Like, it's a recipe for disaster. Yeah. It's a recipe for disaster, right? Because you're so misaligned already, and without taking into the account of how it's going to affect the entire customer life cycle, not just a small portion of it, it's doomed to fail. Like, you will buy technology and you will ask yourself in 6 months, how can we show return on investment on this?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're going to see a bunch of new LinkedIn, looking for job banners, because there's no way to go around it, right?
So a couple, we're almost kind of reaching the end of this, but I want to maybe grab a soundbite and maybe get your take on this, because I think it's an important part. We're calling this the flagrant lie of the art of the possible, or the flagrant lie, the art of the possible. So the people that are presenting the art of the possible, do you think they're aware of the challenges that are going to come, or are they as lost and just focused on the strategy piece without the MarTech as some of the internal folks as well? Like, what is their role and what is their culpability, if you will?
I can't really knock them for it, right? Because they're doing a position, they're fulfilling a role. Are they fully aware of it? I don't think so. I don't think. I think there's certain outliers and there's certain nuances. I think you mentioned data earlier, and if someone comes to a prospecting thing and they're saying, our data's all over the place, and we're like, well, you should get multi-touch attribution. Obviously they know that it's not going to work. Everyone, but you're being sold, and you're being, given this vision, I almost want to say, of what you could be able to do without actually really knowing what you have to do in order to get there. And I think that's the biggest disconnect. And that's the disconnect we have to, really kind of think about, is it the right time for us to do it? To answer your question, I think there's a point in time, and I think there's a sense of what is going on. But once again, unless you're in the tools, unless you've seen it, it's very hard on a 3 or 4 month buying cycle without any data or input, just doing kind of demos, to truly know if an organization is ready or not ready. And I don't think that they're doing it on purpose, right? I don't think they're intentionally saying, oh, we're going to go in and we're going to mess you up. I don't think that's the case. I think it's more on the receiving end, is that just know that they have a job and responsibility, just like we have a job and responsibility, is to make sure we vet everything that comes into our org and our structure. I mean, Akande, you and I have, vetted 5 products over the course of X amount of months before we even bought one. And that's really, that was really us seeing how it fit into an organization role, right? Did it fit? And some of them just didn't. No matter how cool they were, it just didn't at that time.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's a great point. They're doing their role, they're doing their job, and it's up to internal stakeholders, it's up to the marketing operations team, those evaluating the MarTech stack, those looking at this holistically, to be able to push back and say, hey, the possible isn't possible, but we could achieve it with this path. We could achieve the probable. No, I think that's great. Yeah, we love our CSMs, we love our AEs. They're doing what they can, but the reality is, they're given the possible vision, and that's what they want to convey in most cases.
Yeah, and then that's all they know. That's the thing, right? You really have to know, your company, right? We know our company, we know our go-to-market strategy, we know our resources. We are looking at products, and you are telling us what the product has the capability of doing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's up to us to say, is that capability something that is now? Is that capability that's something in the future? Are we ready for it now? And if we don't internally make those decisions, then you're going to have a piece of technology that's going to be a digital paperweight. And it's never going to be used. And then it's eventually, the contract will expire on it. And then you'll move on with the next piece of technology. There's 30,000 pieces of technologies you could buy nowadays.
I mean, it's changed a lot since 2012. So maybe 150 solution to 30,000 in the course of 10 years, and it's only going to get more. There's a drive.
Could you imagine if
companies.
I was a buffet line? Could you imagine going to a buffet
150
with 30,000 options, right?
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there picking one thing at a time to try everything. That's how I feel about the Vegas buffets. I don't even know where to start. Right? Yeah. And sometimes you just get a bunch of food and you're just this was a bad choice. So
30,000 options, and 15 of the 30,000 is a hamburger with one different slice of cheese, a different bun. They're all hamburgers, but they're a little bit different than the next one,
So, sometimes just stick to a cheeseburger,
There you go.
Just a normal cheeseburger will do. No, like you don't need like the $35 cheeseburger with an IPA. Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes a normal cheeseburger with a Coke Zero,
yeah,
it gets the job done.
It's gonna hit the spot. There you go.
Yeah, it's gonna hit the spot perfectly.
Well, as we kind of wrap it up, this being our first episode, our kickoff episode, is there anything we want to end on from the standpoint of what the art of the possible means? If you were to summarize it in one word, I love the term digital paperweight. Your technology will be a digital paperweight. But if there's one thought you could leave the audience with around this topic, what would it be?
The primary thing, and if there's one takeaway, one thought, however you want to call it, is to what you talked about regarding like that internal RFP process. Like, that should be done so much more, because once again, like there's people internally at the company that know what's needed, not needed, by just using the product. And I think that's what we really want to highlight more is, and honestly, that's what people kind of generally hire us for as well. Is like, hey, like we're about to do all of these things. Can you tell us, or can you help us see if we need to do it? Do we need this technology? I mean, there's like a million times, I wouldn't say a million, that's a little exaggerative, but I think there's a lot of times where we've been pulled into a mid RFP cycle and to just say, like, do we need this product?
Yeah.
But once again, the internal resources are the ones that we communicate with, right? We don't talk to the executive. We talk to the executives and we say, hey, what's your strategy? What's your goal? What do you want to report? What is the outcome of this? And they give us the vision. And then we talk to the people. We, as a consulting agency at GNW, like we talk to the people that are doing the work, and they're the ones that we consult with, saying, how are you doing your job? What could make your life easier? What helps? What doesn't help? What are you not using? All of those questions. So it's a lot more than a thought, mind you. But a lot of those questions, we as agencies talk to your internal resources for. We have zero information on that. We have zero input. We just talk to the people that are using the products. So yeah, internal RFP process. I don't think it would be a request for proposal though. We should make something up, like an internal evaluation.
Yeah, RFE.
RFE. What? Request for evaluation.
Yeah.
What about like evaluation ETP, evaluation tech process?
There you go.
Yeah, right. EMTP.
That's not a terrible idea.
EMTP, evaluation martech process. EMTP. I like it. I like that one.
EMTP.
Like it's an EMT, right? Like the EMTs that come in. That's exactly what this process is.
Yeah.
EMTP. That's it. It jolts you back to life. Save your revenue dollars for something that you actually need. So that's what I would lead them with. EMTP.
EMTP. Well, thanks everybody for joining for this first episode of Call It RevOps. We hope you had some valuable takeaways. We appreciate it. Be sure to stay tuned in for next week when we dive into a more RevOps topic. Thanks so much.